Hello, I'm Justine Green with the BBC News. The United States has vowed to continue to isolate Russia and hold it accountable for atrocities in Ukraine. The US ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, confirmed that Washington would press to suspend Russia from the Human Rights Council this week. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the Security Council to expel Russia. Britain's envoy, Dame Barbara Woodward, said the UN was playing a role in holding Russia to account.
We can work with the United Nations to collect the evidence and to debunk the Russian disinformation. We've had several occasions where the United Nations has spoken to us on the humanitarian, the disarmament side, where we've just exposed the Russian lies for what they are. And you'll remember, of course, on the 24th of February, we were sitting in the Security Council listening to Russia say they weren't going to invade Ukraine as the news came that their tanks had crossed the border.
Further accounts of devastation and allegations of possible war crimes are emerging from areas of Ukraine from which Russian troops have withdrawn. Police in the town of Borodyanka said there could be hundreds of people trapped in the rubble beneath bombed blocks of flats. The BBC's Jeremy Bowen sent this report from there.
This is the most damaged town of its size that I've seen in the Kyiv district. In a line of big cream-coloured blocks of flats, several have been flattened. Tons of concrete and steel collapsed into the cellars under the flats. Everything's gone. Dmytro Stashevsky, who lived in the building, stayed in the cellar until the night it was destroyed. He said 20 to 30 were missing from his building alone. The Russians, he said, stopped the mayor organizing an operation to lift the rubble and fired at neighbors when they tried to dig. The bodies are still there, as there is no heavy lifting gear.
Australia, Britain and the United States have agreed to work together to research hypersonic weapons and ways to counter them. Hypersonic missiles, which travel at several times the speed of sound, were reportedly used for the first time in combat by Russia in Ukraine last month. The agreement followed a call between leaders of the AUKUS Defence Alliance, which was created in September. Lawmakers in the US state of Oklahoma have approved a bill that would make performing an abortion illegal except in medical emergencies. Anyone convicted under the new law could face up to 10 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. Tamira Cox-Teray is from the American Civil Liberties Union of Oklahoma.
When Oklahomans want access to an abortion, they're going to find a way to get an abortion. So either that's traveling or that's a self-managed abortion. So bills and bans like these that we're seeing across the country, not just Oklahoma, essentially pit people against other people. People that can afford to go to other states to get the abortion care that they need will go. And then those that can't are forced to have a pregnancy they may or may not want.
World News from the BBC. The Sri Lankan president has revoked the emergency rule he introduced just days ago. The measures would have given the military wide-ranging powers of arrest. They followed widespread protests over a deepening economic crisis and increasing shortages of food, fuel and medicines. Voters in Chile will take part in a mandatory referendum on September the 4th to approve or reject a new constitution. It will replace the constitution enacted by the former dictator Augusto Pinochet in 1980. Chile is undergoing dramatic change after a series of anti-inequality protests in 2019, culminated last year in the election of the leftist former student leader Gabriel Boric as president. He's vowed to expand social rights and reform Chile's neoliberal economic model. The British government is to cancel its first global LGBT conference, which was due to take place in London this year. The event had been in doubt, as the BBC's Lauren Moss explains.
More than 80 LGBT plus charities signed an open letter written by Stonewall calling the decision not to ban conversion therapy for transgender people unacceptable. Last week, the government said legislation would outlaw practices which try to change someone's sexual orientation, but the ban wouldn't include gender identity. The government says it is committed to bringing forward legislation, but the complexity of issues requires separate work to further consider transgender conversion therapy.
Police guarding the US Capitol complex in Washington have trapped a fox believed to have been responsible for 6 aggressive encounters in the grounds over the past 2 days. Officers used a blanket to capture the fugitive vulpine before placing it in a pet carrier. One of those bitten near the Senate offices was Arme Berra, a Democratic congressman from California. He said, "I expect to get attacked if I go on Fox News. I don't expect to get attacked by a fox." BBC News.